Welcome back, everyone. It is Sunday sit-down time, and we got a Sunday sit-down first-timer on our hands tonight. Tamar Sher with KMOV in St. Louis, a sports anchor and reporter. Tamar, thanks for making your virtual debut here in Columbia.
I am thrilled to be here chatting with you. I've been able to hang out with you all season long, but I love that we get to be on this platform together now.
Well, I love that we get to talk your guys' content now. We've been talking Mizzou. You know, every time we see each other, we're talking Mizzou, but let's talk some Blues. Let's talk some Cardinals. Obviously, on the Blues front, there's been a whole lot of news recently. New head coach. You know, kind of tell me about maybe the life that Jim Montgomery's kind of injected into this franchise a little bit.
You said it correctly. Now 4-0-1 with Jim Montgomery as the head coach. And I think that the overall vibe around is that the guys in this locker room are loving Monty. That's the nickname that he has been known for. He was a Blues assistant. He was a Blues player, now Blues head coach. So when talking to general manager Doug Armstrong of the Blues, he told us that this was his guy. So it was nothing against Drew Bannister having to make the switch from Bannister to Jim Montgomery. But once Monty was available, Doug Armstrong was quick to bring him in. And I think we're seeing why he did just that. These guys have some life in them. An overtime win in Calgary, that was a wild one. That was a super wild game. But we are seeing a little bit more positive energy from this Blues organization. Doug Armstrong being aggressive, saying he wants to win. He wants to win now. Monty's their guy. I even talked to Dylan Holloway as well. He was one of those offer sheet guys that came to the Blues, and he said he loves Jim Montgomery's optimistic energy, and it just seems like everyone's getting along right now, and I'm excited to see how this transforms as we get into really the pivotal part of the season.
Well, you know, you kind of touched on it a little bit. I was going to ask you, when Drew Bannister exits and you have players obviously making that coaching transition in the middle of a season here, what was kind of their reaction? Do you get the vibe that maybe like, okay, this was a needed change here?
Well, Montgomery was always someone that was connected with the Blues organization, so I don't think it was as big of a switch. Of course, when a new head coach comes in, there's been a lot of change, and there's been a lot of change in St. Louis, quite honestly, when you talk about switches between head coaches. So for the guys to accept Monty in the way that they did, it's all been positive vibes. We've only gotten one opportunity in person to meet with these guys in a game scenario with Montgomery because they've had an extensive road trip, only coming home to play the Flyers for that one game. And during those conversations that I had with players, I talked to Binnington and Holloway, and they both said the same thing. They love seeing the standing ovation inside the Enterprise Center for Monty coming home. I do think that's a difficult transition when you go from coaching style to coaching style, but clearly something is clicking. They're playing fast, they're playing with energy, and I think that's what Montgomery wanted to see when he came into this organization. But again, some of those top guys already knew him, already knew his style, so I think it was a little bit easier for them to accept him knowing how he was going to come into the organization and what he wanted to do for the Blues.
Well, you kind of mentioned it, you know, could you put your finger on exactly what he's done to make this kind of short turnaround where they are finding success? Is he just putting guys in the right spots? I mean, what do you feel like is the tangible difference that they're seeing under Monty?
I think right now he's trying to figure out what works. I know we saw Falk and we saw Buchnevich out for a couple games because of some injuries, and he's willing to make those adjustments necessary. You're seeing Colton Parayko explode. He was able to get that game winner in overtime and make some history there. But I think it's important to note that this is still a transition period. Clearly, he's been successful on the road, which is a difficult task when you're talking about a new coach coming in and right off the bat, you're going on the road for a significant stretch of time. I think it's hard to say exactly what he's doing, but he's not afraid to switch things up. And that's what's important to note with Jim Montgomery. He's not playing it safe. He's saying, what can these guys do? How can I change things up? Because after that loss, you know, the lines completely shifted and changed. Every forward line, for the most part, changed. There only one defensive pairing changed, but it was a sign for Blues fans that he's willing to shift things to see what connections work.
Well, I know from fans I talked to around here on the Cardinals front, they wanted to see some shifts and some changes on that front for sure. And they kind of got it a little bit here in the offseason. Obviously, Chaim Bloom going to be taking over, you know, John Mozeliak's position. How needed do you think that change was, Tamar, you know, in the long run? Obviously not happening this next season, but...
What I think is particularly interesting about this offseason is that you're seeing a lot of these Cardinals saying they want to stay. They want to stay part of the Cardinals organization. You talk with a guy like Wilson Contreras, who was that Cardinals catcher coming in from the Cubs. And now he's saying, I want to stay in St. Louis so badly that I'm willing to now play first base so that I can stay within the organization and make an impact. This is a veteran voice now in the clubhouse. Sonny Gray, a veteran ace, wanting to come and stay with the Cardinals. So I think what's interesting, and you did mention it, there were changes needed. John Mozeliak saying in an end of season press conference that he wanted, this is a reset, not a rebuild. So he made that pretty clear. But he did say he wants to prioritize player development. That's why Chaim Bloom is coming in. You're seeing a lot of shifting in the staff. There's a lot more directors being added to the minor league system to kind of bolster the player development, give guys like Jordan Walker, Nolan Gorman an opportunity to play every day. So that's when you're talking about the offseason moves that the Cardinals may or may not make. You're not going to see a lot of them. Fans are expecting that based on that end of season press conference, but it's because they want to see how much they can develop that young talent in a better way than what has been done in the recent past.
Wild times out in St. Louis. Winter Roundup is going to be here before we know it. I feel like the season's going to be here before we know it too, Tamar.
Oh, yeah. The season is definitely going to be here before we know it. Winter meetings coming up this Monday. I think there are going to be a lot of things that are going to be shaken out during that winter meetings period and beyond. And then, of course, spring training is right around the corner. So you look at next year and it's here before you know it.
Looking forward to getting warm down in spring training. I appreciate you making some time with us, Tamar.
Of course. Thanks for having me. And I can't wait to chat with you again soon.
Thank you. For the rest of you guys, we'll be right back after the break.